ladies and gentlemen. How are y'all doing this morning? Quick introduction. My name is Jason Robinson. I'm the owner and operator for Blankworks. If you've been in the vendor room, you've seen some of the watch part blanks that I've made. And as of probably about 3 or 4 weeks ago, I've kind of converted myself over to using the SUCS systems from Speakeasy. SUCS stands for the Speakeasy Universal Casting System. So they are available with a Speakeasy table out there for, I think Jason said $35 a piece. So we're going to go through and we're going to take a look at exactly what you're going to get out of the SUCS purchase or out of the SUCS system. You're going to have a short rod. I'm going to try to get all of this stuff apart and let y'all see everything you're going to be getting out of this. So you're going to get one short all-thread rod. Let's see if I can get that down there for the camera. With 2 flat washers, 2 wing nuts, and 2, I call them stoppers, end molds. I don't know what Jason's actual terminology for them is, but you're going to get 2 silicone end molds. You're also going to get a long, 1 foot long all-thread bar, and that's for if you ever wanted to cast something a little bit longer that isn't necessarily a pin. I know some people had talked about possibly doing some cigar humidors and casting something of that nature. You need a little bit longer tube for, so you'd have to have a longer rod. What you're also going to get is 2 apiece of the 2 different size plastic tubes. You're going to get 2 apiece of the 1 foot each. For the purpose of today, I'm going to pass around one of the blanks that I've actually cast with the SUCS system. I'll let you pass that around. And the only thing that I've done on that blank after it came out of the SUCS system was I trimmed the ends just like you would with your barrel trimmers, and then I polished it. I didn't do any sanding or anything, so you're going to be able to feel on what I call the back side of the blank, you're going to be able to feel the canyon that is created with the SUCS system, and that's not necessarily going to happen every single time. It all depends on how much resin you actually pour into your mold. Sometimes there's a little bit deeper of a gap in the back than others. So again, it really depends on what type of resin you're using. I personally use polyester resin for all of my blanks because of the clarity. For the purposes of what I do, I enjoy having a very deep clarities where you can see all the way down to the tube. You're able to see all of the gears. You're able to see all of the detail work on either the abalone or the foil tape. So we're going to go through, and I'm going to give you the step-by-step of what I actually do for working with this system. So I have a couple of watch part blanks that I had prepped specifically for this, and I'll let you see those up there. I'm going to go and measure these out for y'all, show y'all how I do that actual measurement and get it cut and create the cut in the back so that you can set it up for a pour. So move some of this stuff out of the way so we can, are we on there? Okay. So first thing you're going to want to do, and get all of these washers and wing nuts off. You're going to put the 1 tube on, and for a junior, that's what this is for a junior, you're going to take and get it in between the 2 stoppers. You're going to take your calipers, and for the purpose of the cap for the junior, I can't really tell if I'm on there or not. For the cap for the junior, on the mold, right in here, there is a groove that you're trying to get your tube, your clear tube, into. Now, the reason you want to get it all the way in there is because that creates the seal to keep the resin from pouring out. So you want to make sure that you're going to get that tube all the way to that point without over cranking the wing nuts so that it makes the tube bow out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure in between the top of that tube, or I'm sorry, the top of that little ring that's on there. And I'll pass one of these around in just a second so y'all can see what I'm talking about on that. Once you measure that, you're able to see that it is right at 3.4 inches. For the purpose of today, we're going to use the large tube. We're going to mark 3.4 inches on there. And then you're just going to take your Sharpie and draw a line straight around at the 3.4 inch mark. Now, I've done a lot of these, and you don't have to do it with the Sharpie, and you don't have to do it with the scissors the way I'm fixing to show you guys. You can actually cut them on a bandsaw. It's not advised 100% of the time, however, it can be done. Instead of going straight through, pushing it through like it's a dowel, if you push the tube up to the blade and rotate the tube backwards, you can actually cut the tube without destroying it. If you push straight through, it's going to grab that plastic tube and it's going to shatter it. So just push through it. For the purpose of today, we're going to use good old-fashioned scissors. I'm just going to cut straight at that line. Now, that one's set up to go. However, what we still need to do is we're going to have to cut those slits. And we're going to check this real quick before we go and cut those slits, just in case we need to do any trim up on the ends. That one's going to be just at where it needs to be. So what I'm looking at right now, I might have to move that a little bit. I'll just move down this way. What I'm looking at is, if you look right in, I don't know if it's able to see it or not, there's a slight gap between the tube and where that cavity is, where it holds the tube in place. Now, you want to have a little bit of space there because you're going to want to compress the stoppers, the ends of the stoppers, into the actual tube. So the more you can get that stopper end in that tube, the better seal you'll have, and you'll be able to keep the resin out of the inside of the tube. With pretty much any molds that you've used for tube end blanks, you've got a stopper, and if you don't seat that stopper all the way into the tube, you end up with resin inside. So with this, you're able to push that stopper all the way in there by having the wing nut and the washer on the ends. You're able to get a little bit more torque on there and push that stopper into the tube a little bit deeper to prevent the resin from seeping through and getting into the tube. So now that I know that this one is actually set up and it's going to fit, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to make the marks to cut the cut the hole in the back, or cut the hole in the tube, so that you know exactly where to be pouring. And one thing that I like to do, hey, this is actually convenient. What I've got for my personal shop, I've actually got a little piece of metal that sits on my workbench. And I just bring, let me see if I can do that. I just push that clear tube right up against that piece of metal, and I take my Sharpie and I draw a line straight across. I don't know if it actually picked up. Let me try this black Sharpie. So you get your first line on there, and then you're just going to rotate it about 1/4 of an inch and draw your second line. And now we're set up and ready to go, and send that all around there, guys. Now you're ready, you're set up and ready to go ahead and cut that and get it mounted up on the actual end pieces and go ahead and pour it. So I'm going to go ahead and prep the next one, and we're going to go ahead, I'll let that one pass around for a little while. We'll prep the next one, we'll get it all mounted up, and y'all will be able to see exactly what we're doing with them. And I'm sorry, guys, if I'm not in the lens. If you tell me that I'm not, I'll move.
So how many pores can you get out of that silicone plug?
Out of the silicone plug, at this point, I don't know, because I've done somewhere around 100 to 150 out of the sets that I've got. The silicone isn't what you're really wasting, and I won't say wasting. The silicone is not something that I'd be overly concerned about wearing out. What you're going to go through a lot of is the clear tubes. They can be reused to an extent. Polyester resin and the clear tubes, the polyester resin does tend to deteriorate that clear tube. I don't pour with Alumilite, so I can't tell you what the experience is going to be with Alumilite or any other resins. But for the purpose of the actual silicone stopper, I have no idea how many uses I'm going to get. Sir?
Which PR are you using?
Silmar 41. Yeah, I have no idea how many I'm going to get. I guess time will tell. You know, SUCS has been out now for, I think, 3, maybe 4 months. What's that?
2.
2. I'm sorry, 2.
Feels like years.
It feels like it's been out for a while. But Jason, do you have any longevity tests on it?
No, and I'll tell you why. So, and I don't mean to interrupt you.
No.
The silicone that's being used is rated Black 40 silicone. That's the same strength as the rubber that your tires are made out of on your vehicle. But even as that silicone breaks down, by those plugs being drawn together with the all thread, it is, because silicone is full of oil, and the heat, it will eventually dry out. That's with any silicone. But with it being pulled together, just because it dries out, it's still going to be usable for a very long time. But my suggestion with any molds is to buy a silicone rejuvenator. WD-40 makes it. If you keep your molds in a Tupperware bin, once a week, hit them with that silicone rejuvenator. Because when you heat your molds, or just the heat coming off the resin, it's going to dry out your mold. The more you use them, the quicker you're going to dry out. It is inevitable, it will happen.
You don't use a silicone release of any type of one?
I have not been.
I used it, I didn't use it, I saw no real difference. So guys, I looked at all the other universal molds out there. I took what I didn't like about them. I tried to take care of those issues. That's not better than anything else out there, and I don't want anybody to think it's another option. If you're going to do nothing but Sierra blanks, go buy a Sierra mold. If you want to be able to do all kinds of stuff without spending hundreds of dollars on molds, I think that's where, you know, that's just my opinion. It is an option. So, sorry, Jason.
No, that's quite all right. You brought up the fact that if you're going to be doing a lot of Sierras, go get a Sierra mold, and that's a valid point. For those of you that have seen my display in there, you see the difference between the watch part stuff that I have versus the plain abalone stuff that I have. The plain abalone stuff, and I've even told Jason, I'm going to continue pouring my straight abalone blanks in the blue junior mold, the Sierra molds, cigar molds, the full size, and the Derrick and Dennis stuff. I'm going to continue using those blue molds for that stuff, for that purpose. But for the purpose of my watch part stuff, because I'm very particular about my blanks and how I photograph them, is something that when I reviewed SUCS originally, I made it a point to explain that for the purpose of my website, for the purpose of displaying at these shows, I want my blanks, my watch part blanks specifically, to have a complete crystal clear, no scratch on them finish. I don't like putting something out there that still needs some work done on it just to make a good picture. So I want to take that blank and have it completely round, have it perfect for a photograph, and able to display it for you guys to see it and can truly envision it on a pen. The SUCS is going to give me the opportunity to do that without having to put so much work into finishing the blank just for the purpose of the pictures. So with it being 90% round, and I say 90% round because if you looked at this as it went around, you found that canyon in the back. Okay, I say 90% round because you've got that canyon in the back. Now, like I said, that canyon is dependent upon how much resin you put in, how you cast, if you use a pressure pot or you don't use a pressure pot. If it settles, bubbles happen, but that canyon forms in some and doesn't in others. Like I said, for the purpose of my website, for my products, I'm slowly converting over to using the SUCS system for the watch part stuff, just for the purpose of a little bit less work for my end product. If you are casting for the purpose, I need to step back.
Well, this one is the one from the wire. Can you move it closer or something?
This?
Yeah, you tap it. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. That's one.
Was it cutting out?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I can tell now. Where was I?
I think in West Virginia.
Okay. No, for the purpose of my watch part stuff, I am, like I said, I am switching over to using this just to save myself a little bit of work. Are y'all, is it still?
It's like in and out.
Yeah,
It's not ours.
it is. Okay. I'll try to get a little bit of this trimmed back. So you don't have to have it 100% squared off, but it definitely helps. It definitely helps. I actually got some of the ones in the original package. I think Jason cut them at an angle just to mess with me. And I had to trim that just a little bit so that it was squared off with the mold. And again, I measured this one out. It's at for the lower, it's going to be at a 3.6 inch. We're going to check that real quick just to make sure. Now, with the smaller tube, the ring that retains it on the stopper is a little bit more pronounced. So, I don't know, did we pass that one around? No, we didn't. Tell you what, pass this one around and you can see that ring. There's a ring on the outer edge, that's for the larger tube, and there's a ring on the inner, and that's for the smaller diameter clear tube. For the purpose of the smaller tube, this inner ring is a little bit more pronounced. It'll hold that thing a little bit better. So we're going to check that just to make sure that everything seats, and that one's pretty near a perfect fit. So now that one's done, we'll take that clear tube back off. We'll get that Sharpie again, bring it over, and again, all we're going to do is draw one line across, rotate it about 1/4 of an inch, draw the second line across, and you're able to see, I don't know if you're able to see those lines or not on there. You're able to see that there are a couple of lines on there, and then we're just going to take the scissors. We're going to go ahead and cut that strip. And when that other one comes back up here, I'll go ahead and cut that one, and we'll get them screwed in and get them ready for a pour. And for the purpose of today, I told Jason I don't feel right bringing the polyester resin in here for you guys to inhale that stuff. So we're going to leave that off to the side. We're just going to set these up. I'll bring them up here, and you guys can, if y'all want to take a look at the blanks and the way that they're set in the molds, we'll definitely pass those around and let y'all see that.
So you're cutting that to take it out?
Right, okay, sorry about that. Yes, what I did, I got busy talking there and I forgot what I was supposed to be doing here. So basically what I did was I cut a strip, and instead of just cutting one line and creating an opening, you actually cut a gap between the pieces to where you actually have, when it relaxes back to its natural state, you actually have a small gap in there. So it's relaxed back to its natural state, and you can see that there's a 1/4 inch gap on the tube now. So what you're going to do is you're just going to slide that right in there. You're going to take your stopper, push it all the way up against your brass tube in there, and make sure that your clear tube is seated inside of that retaining ring. And I might have cut these just a little bit long, but for the purpose of the fact that we are not going to be pouring this, I don't think it's going to matter that much. Once you get that screw on there, you're just going to tighten those down until you're able to see that there is no gap between the stopper and the brass tube. Now, I say you only go that far. However, my hands get a little bit heavy sometimes, and I like to really crank down on wing nuts. I like to crank down on ratcheting, tightening up the wing nuts, and what I've done in the past, and I'm going to try to do this to the point that it actually happens. That's what you don't want to happen, okay? Okay, I do that on purpose because I want y'all to see that. Once you've done that, you haven't broken it, okay? It can still be fixed. You can back it out just a little bit and it will return back to its normal shape. I can get that back. There we go. You can get it back to its regular shape, but what you've done is you've created a line in there. You've created a potential weakness in your tube, in the integrity of the tube. Here's a way to fix it: a rubber band. Just take a thin rubber band, put it right there in the center. Double it up if you have to, but put it right there in the center, and it will basically return the integrity and keep that from buckling out, because if you're putting it under pressure, that slight deficiency in the tube could potentially create a bulge, and you end up losing some resin or have an oblong looking blank. So that's another trick that I've learned. I've done that a few times, to say the least. I've made the mistake of over cranking. It's just a bad habit of mine, I guess. So that one's set up. We're going to go ahead and get ready. Who's got that clear tube? Oh, it's right there. Thank you.
So Jason, in cutting hundreds of those tubes myself, I devised a way, and I use plumbing tubing cutters, and it'll be nice if you want to put a dowel rod in there to give you some backing. You can mark the dowel rod if you're doing specific lengths and
Right.
do them extremely quick.
And that is a great idea, and that's actually, for those of you that weren't able to hear that, he's using a dowel rod that he has marks on inside, he pushes that inside the clear tube to show the length that he needs to cut the clear tube at, and he's using a plumbing tube cutter to actually cut around the clear tube. That gives him a nice square edge that he doesn't have to, with scissors, you're not always, I mean, you might go straight across, you might go at a little bit of an angle, but with that plumbing,
Pinch point.
right.
Scissors.
Right, and with that plumbing tube cutter, it's a straight 90 degree the whole way around. That's a practice that we've used for cutting brass tubes. We use the center punches to put inside the brass tubes to cut them down to length. So good point to bring that up. Something that I don't know if I mentioned it or not with the bandsaw process, I had set up, I had done very similar, and I had measured out some dowels to the lengths that I needed to have my clear tubes cut for. I've got them marked for my juniors, for my full-size Heralds, for my Sierras, for the cigars and some of the Shakespeares and Mistrals. I've got all those set up now to where I set that in my bandsaw as basically a guide. You set my fence to where it needs to be, and then cut with the bandsaw. So very similar, just using the power rather than doing it by hand the whole time. It works. It works.
The tubing cutter is like a pair of pliers.
What's that?
The tubing cutter I use is like a pair of pliers.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's made by Rick.
I was thinking the actual ones that you actually rotate around the tube. I got you now.
ABC cutter.
Gotcha, yeah. Okay. All right. Got that.
Can I see the one that you've already got put together?
Absolutely. We will pass that. I'll let him pass that to you. And I'm sorry if I'm a little bit clumsy up here, guys. It's been a long time since I've taught a class.
You're doing just fine.
I don't feel like it, but
No, you're doing just fine.
Don't argue by me, because I don't know nothing about it.
and I know that other silicone piece is floating around back there.
There on your table.
Oh, it's not floating. It's already here. Man, y'all are moving this stuff back up quick.
Jason, what is the material you've got over the carbon fiber in gears now?
That is a secret.
Proprietary.
That is a secret.
That's fine.
Me and you can talk offline about that if you'd like, but that is something that I will not disclose at this point in time. All right. Is that, I'm nowhere near the camera, but,
See it?
all right, so something that I've done quite a few times, and I did it by accident this time, but you can see, I don't know if you can or not, you can see, the whole reverse thing is what kills me sometimes. But you can see that I've got this one all the way in there, but on the other side, I have it just a little bit outside of the ring. All you got to do is pull that back. Is it actually getting it?
Yeah,
Okay. All you have to do is just pull that back a little bit, and that tube pops into the ring. You might have to back the wing nut off just a little bit to allow it to get into that cavity. But once it goes in there, there it is. Once it goes in there, it's all good. And this one is now ready to go ahead and pour. I'm going to back that wing nut off just a little bit to relieve some of that upper tension, because this tube was not cut 100% square, but that one is now ready to go and ready to be poured. Now, if you look, you've got about a 1/4 inch cavity that you can pour your resin directly into. The one that y'all are passing around, you can see that gap in the clear tube. It's got that 1/4 inch. Now, a 1/4 inch the first time I did it wasn't quite enough. I ended up going back and recutting some of them to make it a little bit wider. The slower you pour, that fine little stream of resin that you're pouring out, this plastic is going to create a little bit of a static cling to that resin whenever it's coming out of the cup. Okay, there's almost no way around it sometimes. For whatever reason, you're going to have a little bit of a static cling, and that resin's going to want to go to the outside. And it may just be that I try to pour just too little at a time, but really and truly, the easiest way to pour it is to use, for me at least, I'm using the small 3-ounce cups. I measure out 2 ounces at a time, pinch that cup to create a spout, and just aim it straight at that gap and fill it until it bubbles right at the top. So you're going to fill it until you see it come through the top of that opening, and you're done. Move on to the next one. What did I miss? Or what do y'all have questions on? Because I know there's got to be something somebody's got to ask. Yes, sir.
Refer to SUCS. What's the whole word?
What's that?
When you refer to the SUCS system, what's
Speakeasy Universal Casting System.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Which I prefer that over SUCS. Jason's not in here, so.
He might have heard that, though.
He probably did. But yes, Speakeasy Universal Casting System, SUCS. Speakeasy Table has them, $35, and you've seen exactly what comes out of it. Again, that is just one kit, is 2 stoppers, the 2 different rods, the wing nuts, the washers. But like I said, one kit is only 2 stoppers. For the purpose of today's demo, I did 2 so that we could pass some stuff around, and that's, of course, I'm using 2 for a junior so that I'm doing a cap and a bottom at the same time. Anything else? Yes, sir.
Those in a pressure pot?
What's that?
I said, are you putting them in a pressure pot after you?
I do. Polyester resin does not require a pressure pot. However, I have a pressure pot, so why not use it?
How long?
How long?
How long do you keep it in the pot under pressure?
With polyester resin, usually anywhere from 4 to 24 hours. It all depends on when I remember that I put something in there. A lot of times I will cast in the morning. I will make my blanks in the morning. I will cast them at lunch, and I will pull them out around 5 o'clock in the evening. That is really rushing with some of the polyester resin. With Silmar 41, that's kind of pushing it, but it's adequate.
And how long does it have to cure before you can turn it?
I could turn it that night.
Really?
I've got a post-cure process that I could make it to where I could turn it that night. I've built a blank and had a pen at the end of the day. But that also comes down to knowing your processes, knowing your products. With polyester resin, you can manipulate it a little bit. That's another class for another day, and with better ventilation. Anything else? No? Good. Thank you.